Wonderful. Well, welcome to the BTS Creative Academy podcast. Thank you for joining me today, Charles, to share your show that you're taking to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this summer. Yeah, let's get into it. So, your theatre company, Low Bar Theatre, is taking 4 more short plays loosely based on true crime. Is that the title of the show?
Not quite, almost. 4 more short plays loosely linked by the theme of crime. Ridiculously long title. And yeah, it's a sequel as well. The one I did previously was called 5 short plays loosely linked by the theme of crime. Throughout the process of reading that and getting that, I had to correct people, being like, it's actually linked, not connected. It's actually by the theme of crime, not to the theme of crime, etc., etc. So yeah, people are getting it wrong all the time, but I don't mind. It's funny, and I can't blame them. It's a long time.
I guess that's what happens with a long title like this. So this is a sequel. You attended the Fringe Festival last year.
Yes.
And I presume going back, that must have been fairly successful for you.
Yeah, it was good. We had a great time. We had good audience attendance, sold quite a few tickets. It wasn't, a complete financial disaster, which is always nice. Got some good reviews out of it. So yeah, we were like, why not do it again, but different. It's an entirely different show, but the same concept.
So tell me about this show that you're taking, first of all, this year. What is this show about, if the title doesn't say it all?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's an anthology of short crime comedy plays. So it's a cast of 3 actors. They all act in all 4 of the plays, playing different characters in each one. They're entirely unconnected to each other. There's no overarching story to keep track of or anything like that. It's literally just 4 standalone plays. And yeah, they're all comedies, all kind of slightly dark comedies. They're all about quite different things. One of them's a Western about a train robbery. There's one about 3 friends trying to come up with a plan to forge a will. There's one that is basically like an adaptation of Macbeth, like one scene from Macbeth, but in a sort of modern sitcom kind of style. And then there's one that's just like an out-and-out ridiculous farce about some gangsters trying to extort some money from a butcher's shop, and it's full of puns about meat and funny misunderstandings and wordplay, and it's just silly. So yeah, 4 quite different plays, but all about crime and all comedies.
And how will these be presented to the audience? Is these all? Do you go to see them all separately, or are they all in one showing?
It's all together, one show. The runtime is about 50 minutes, 50. So each one's about 10 to 12 minutes or so. And yeah, just a nice 50 minutes of 4 different things, kind of like tapas, a nice little sampling of various things. But yeah, all at the same time, 1 ticket price, 1 venue, etc.
And your cast, have you a large cast for this show? Are there many actors involved?
It's a cast of 3, 3 very, very talented actors. 2 of them are returning from last year's show, and one of them is an actor who I had not worked with directly before this project, but we've been kind of involved on a previous project, but not working directly together. And yeah, I was very excited to work with her because I know she's extremely talented as well. So yeah, 3 lovely, lovely people.
And I guess that's what you need, isn't it? If you're doing an adventure like going to the Edinburgh Fringe, you need to go there with good people, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a difficult month. It's hard work. It's exhausting. So if you don't get along with the people on your team, that's just going to be horrible. But yeah, these people are all absolutely lovely. So I'm looking forward to spending the month of August with them.
Wonderful. And so, have you, as a team, done this show already? Have you shown an audience these plays? Have you put it out there in the world, or is it going just straight to the Fringe?
No, yeah, the Fringe is basically going to be the premiere of this show. We did do one of the short plays as part of like a scratch night in London a few months ago. So where, you know, different writers will come and try out different material for like 10 minutes. So we presented, one of these short plays as part of that. But the other three have never been seen by anyone before. So that's very exciting.
Nice. So let's go back to you went there last year. What do you take from your experience last year into this experience for this year moving forward?
So last year was my first time bringing my own work to the Fringe. I know a lot about the Fringe because I've been there for years and years and years to watch shows and to work handing out flyers just for a bit of money while I'm up there because it's so expensive to be up there. And then years ago, when I was in school, my school actually took a play up to the Fringe and I acted in that. But last year's show was my first time bringing my own work, my own writing, my own directing to the Fringe, and my first time producing at the Fringe. So I basically knew nothing last year going into it. So I learned so much, which I'm now applying this year. The main thing being just being as organized as possible from the very start and staying on top of the piles and piles of admin that need to be done. Last year, like I think I'm quite an organized person naturally, but last year I simply didn't know what I needed to be organized about, what sort of things I needed to be on top of. Whereas this year I know specifically what I need to do. I'm like, I'm insurance, music licensing, marketing, et cetera, props, costumes, all of that. So I've got like hundreds of checklists and spreadsheets to keep track of everything that I need to keep track of, which is fun. And it's making the process this year a lot smoother and a lot less stressful than it was last year. Last year I was like, what is going on? What am I supposed to be doing? This year I'm like, it's okay. There's a lot to do, but I know what I need to do. I've got it all written down. I can work my way through it.
You made the mistakes last time, and this time you're going into this prepared and with the knowledge of everything that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so as you move into this year and you're fully prepared, what is it that you're looking forward to?
What am I looking forward to? So many things. It's hard to pin down. I always love about long runs of shows, seeing how the show itself can like change over the course of a run. Like gradually the actors will find something that really works and they'll incorporate that more and more and more. Or they'll notice things that aren't working and then we can change it. So the show over the course of the 21 performances we're doing is going to change a lot. And I'm very excited to see what happens with that. It's going to be a very different show on the last night to what it is on the first night, which is always, exciting and interesting. And then the usual stuff. I'm so excited to see other people's shows. Obviously, there's thousands and thousands of shows at the Fringe, all made by, most of them made by very, very talented people. So I'm excited to watch them, excited to meet people. It's always very social, like talking to people after their show. Mingling with like-minded people, other creatives, etc. So those are the main things.
That's interesting that you touch on that as well. The meeting like-minded people, putting yourself into a space where people have a common interest and shared goals. The majority of the people that will be up there will be looking for very similar achievements to yourself, and they'll be having a very similar experience to yourself. And I guess you can form a community. Did you find that last year? Did you find a community was built that you didn't expect to see?
Absolutely, yeah. Like, so there was 5 of us in the company, 3 actors, myself, and our technician Nina as well, who's also coming back again this year. And often we would be going off doing our own separate things, like going to see different shows, meeting different people, etc., etc. And then when we'd come back together, there would also be other people there who we had all brought along. Like, we'd meet people, we'd make friends with them, and then next time we were all in a bar together, it might be a case of someone else is also at the bar, and we're like, "Oh, hey, come say hi," etc., etc. I'm saying etc. a lot. I'm gonna try and stop doing that and try and just be more specific.
Yes, no, I think we get. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, that it builds, doesn't it? When you the momentum of the community grows as you all start to connect.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So by the end, you've met so many people.
do you think that helps after the Fringe? Do you think that moves your career as a writer, director, producer? Do you think that has any impact on moving you forward?
Absolutely, yeah. So much of theatre is about relationships and about knowing the right people to call on when you need something done, having people with whom you can exchange favors, because yeah, in sort of like fringe theatre, and if you're in the early stages of your career, like I am, oftentimes you can't pay people because you simply do not have the funding or the money. So it's a case of finding people who are enthusiastic about the projects you want to work on, and getting them on board to work as a favor or as a profit share is what we're doing at the Fringe this year and last year. Any profits we make are being split equally between the whole company, which, yeah, it's a big financial risk to ask of people. So you need to find that community of people and those connections where they're willing to be like, oh yeah, I believe in you as an artist. I believe in the work we're making. I'm willing to take this risk and to work as a favor to you. And in return, I know you'll do the same for me because we have that genuine connection. And I don't even think about it in these terms. It's just something that happens naturally. Like, I'm not at the Fringe trying to network. I'm not like, oh, I need to meet someone whom I can call on for a favor in the future. That's not how it happens. I just go there and organically meet people and connect with people. And in the future, it might be helpful for my career. It might not. Worst case scenario, I've just met someone lovely and had a nice time connecting with them, which is fine. That's good in itself.
Yeah, we shouldn't forget that, should we? The in the moment, how valuable that is to meet someone, and to build a connection just for that moment in time. It doesn't have to go forward, does it? It doesn't have to be something in the future. Like we're having this,
Exactly.
we've met just now, and we're having this conversation now, and we're both. I'm learning a lot from you today, and these conversations that I'm having with people, and there's so much value to be taken from that, just from that moment. So it's putting yourself in the right position to get the best out of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you touched on the expense of Edinburgh. Tell me a little bit about the expense of Edinburgh. So have you done some crowdfunding to get yourself there?
I have, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how's that?
The crowdfunding campaign went well, yeah. I didn't set too high of a target for the crowdfunding because most of the expenses I've been able to cover from like money I had saved up and profits from previous theatre projects, etc., etc. So I just did a small crowdfunding campaign to get a bit of extra money that I could use to spend on things that weren't strictly essential for the show, that would improve it. So I'm buying and renting some higher quality props than I otherwise would. I tend to just make props at home when I can, and they don't always look that good. But this year, yeah, with the crowdfunding, I've got a bit of extra money to play with to buy these little luxuries to make the show slightly better. But yeah, lots of lovely people donated to the crowdfunding campaign. A lot of my friends and family, very kind of them, and then some anonymous donors, some people who, I don't know, I guess they'd just come across the crowdfunding campaign on social media, thought it sounded interesting, and were like, yeah, I'll donate a bit of money to that. And also people who had seen my work previously and enjoyed it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I want to support this artist. I'll donate a bit of money. So yeah, very kind, very people.
There are some kind people out there, aren't there? And some people that really understand the value that the arts can bring to this world. And there's so many hidden costs with doing something like this. Even if you just consider the transport, the fuel to get you there, the food, you're staying somewhere that's not your home for what is it, 3 weeks, and in that time you need to eat and you need accommodation, and that's like they're just the basics before you even do the show.
Yeah, it's crazy, and yeah, with regard, it's so easy to get into a spiral of like spending excessive amounts of money in Edinburgh once you're up there, because you're out and about all day. You don't necessarily have the time or the energy to, like cook a meal, take a lunch with you, etc. So you're like out, I'm hungry, I've got a show to see in half an hour, I need to eat something. It's going to have to be an expensive street food burger or something, and that's like £12 or whatever. And then, a lot of people drink a lot in Edinburgh. I know I do. And yeah, the bars during the festival is so expensive, like close to like £7 a pint.
Wow.
So it's, again, so easy if you're not thinking about it to just, waste away a lot of money on coffee as well. You need coffee to keep you going. So you'll be like, oh, I'll stop into a cafe, buy some coffee. But no, it all adds up. So this year I'm trying to be very, very conscious of that and trying to, again, like with the preparation for the show itself, I'm hoping each day I can be a bit more prepared and think, I'll cook a lunch in advance. I'll take a lunch with me. I'll take sandwich, whatever. I'll make sure I have time to drink a coffee in the flat before I leave, rather than having to buy a takeaway coffee, that sort of thing.
And you touched on it there. The social aspect of this is also something that we might not always consider, but it is very, very important. We've touched on it, the importance of networking, and yeah, that social aspect, that going out for a drink in the evening, meeting other creatives like yourself, the value that can bring to your craft, and I guess that can also help bring an audience into your shows as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So during the Fringe, if you're there with a show, you're kind of always marketing it, not directly, but it's always there in the back of your mind. Like last year, I always had a pile of flyers in my pocket, no matter where I was going. It could be like, I am going for social drinks with a friend who lives in Edinburgh, who I haven't seen in a while. They have no interest in theatre. They have no interest in the show. I'm still going to bring some flyers with me, because you never know who else you're going to bump into.
How many flyers would you say you get through during the run? How many flyers did you get through last time?
I do not have that figure off the top of my head. I know it's written down somewhere, because I've got everything written down somewhere.
Would you say it's in the thousands?
Not quite the thousands. I would say over 500, maybe 700. we were trying to be quite specific with our flyering strategy. It's not really that helpful to just give out flyers. What's more important is the conversation you have with people. Like, no one's gonna come and see your show based on a flyer unless it's literally the best flyer in the world. So what's more important is using the flyer as a prompt to get the conversation started. And then also, once you've sold them on the show, they then have the flyer as a reminder. And they're like, oh, okay, I was supposed to see the show. I loved the conversation I had with the person who gave me this flyer. I will see the show.
So have you got any other marketing tips or advice for anyone that's got a show in Edinburgh this year, of ways in which to engage with people and get them to come and see your show?
Yeah, I do. None of this is going to apply to everyone. This is just stuff that works for me personally. When talking about the show and when flyering, when posting on social media, etc., I am quite candid about it. You see some people who are marketing their show, and it's quite manufactured and extremely, like, wow, this show's amazing, it's the best show you'll ever see, and so on, which my show is good. It's really good, but it's not going to be the best show anyone's ever going to see. I'm quite candid about this, and I recognize that the show also isn't going to be for everyone. So I engage people honestly about the show. I tell them what it is. I tell them what excites me about it. But if it is becoming apparent that they're not interested for any reason, I'm going to leave it be. I'm not going to spend energy trying to convince someone who's not even going to enjoy the show in the end. And people appreciate it. Sometimes people end up coming around to the idea of the show just because you're being so candid about it. They're so used to a hard sales pitch where someone's really, really trying to get them in, that someone being like, actually, you know what? You might enjoy that other show that I can see you have a flyer for in your hand right now more, if that's your kind of thing. And they're like, oh, I'm talking to a genuine human, a person, not just a robot trying to sell a show. And it gives a better impression. It makes it feel more like a human connection rather than a sales pitch. People don't really want to be sold a show. Rather, they want to organically come around to the idea of the show and the artists behind it.
Having got some experience myself in sales, I've always been fully aware that people buy people. They don't buy. 100%. They don't. You don't. But I used to work in it's long gone, the place that I used to work in 20 years ago. But I used to work in a TV shop called Comet, where they sold TVs, stereos, and things like that. And as a salesperson there, and I was good at the job there because I didn't ever talk about the product. I talked to them about them, and I talked to them about the things that they enjoyed, and then I matched that maybe to the product, but I'd never go into the detail, the specifications, the ins and outs of how it works, because no one's really interested on the ins and outs details. They're kind of interested in how the thing is going to make them feel, and if you as a person can give that message across of how that show is going to make them feel, and they're going to get a genuine, authentic reception from you, they're more likely to want more of that from the entertainment that you're going to provide.
Absolutely, yeah. And on the topic of like details of the product, I try to avoid telling them anything that they can get from reading the flyer or from looking on the internet, like on the Fringe website, because they can find that information themselves. I would rather give them something unique to that moment, and specific to the context in which I'm talking to them, rather than giving a more general, broad thing that everyone can see, everyone has access to it. Because again, it feels more human and genuine as opposed to rehearsed.
So you sound like you've got a really good knowledge base of how to engage with people. Do you give that to your cast as well? Do you talk to your cast in advance, and do you work as a team when you're out there on the street?
We talk about it. We strategize among us. We share what's been working well for us, so that other people can try it. I'm obviously not like prescriptive. I'm not like, this is the way to do it, you should all be doing this. Because again, they're all individuals. They're all their own people. They all have their own styles and their own preferences, and their own ways of engaging with people, which I'm not going to be able to tell them how to do that. That's something they will find for themselves. But yeah, there is strategy between us in terms of where we're going to flyer, when we're going to flyer, what kind of things we're going to say to try and get the right audience in, because that's important as well. It's no good selling out one night if everyone who is in the audience that one night will then go on to be like, oh, I didn't like that show. I'd much rather sell half the seats and have half of them empty, but then all of the people who see it are going to enthusiastically recommend it to everyone they know. So that's important, having an understanding between us about what the show is, who it appeals to, etc. Need to stop saying etc.
Maybe this will be the episode title, etc. I didn't notice. I think you're noticing it more than I am. One thing that I'm interested in, so I'm a theatre director, producer myself, and I've done things on a small scale locally, but I've never taken anything to the Fringe. One of the things I'm interested in about going to the Fringe is, how do you keep the energy of the show alive? Because you're putting all this effort into getting bums on the seats, and you're out there in the street, and you're out there doing the networking, and you're out there having fun, enjoying the festival itself and building the community. But then there's the show happens, and the show itself takes a huge amount of work and energy. So how do you keep that going?
Yeah, it's absolutely exhausting. Last year, one of the actors even got tonsillitis about just over halfway through the Fringe. He got tonsillitis, and like off stage, he was so sick, so unwell. And I was like, you should not do the show. We can cancel the show, or we can have someone stand in and read from the script. You don't have to do the show. And he was insistent. He was like, I am absolutely going to do the show. And as soon as he got on stage, you could not tell there was anything wrong with him. Like, he gave an amazing performance. And honestly, I don't know how he did it. I'm not an actor, so it's not something I have to think about that
Well, I've
much.
heard there's this thing called Doctor Theatre, and I think that comes somewhere from the adrenaline of doing the show. I think the adrenaline mixed with the mindset, mixed with, you put your mind and body into the routine which you've practiced, it can offset pretty much any illness, just for that period of time. I don't know how good that is for you mentally or physically. I don't know if that's something that we should prescribe, but I have experienced it myself. I've had similar illnesses as being an actor I was an actor in a pantomime years ago, and I had a bad illness that I had the mumps. This was a long time ago, 20 odd years ago, but I couldn't do the last week, but I did 3 or 4 shows, and those 3 or 4 shows that I did whilst I was on stage, my symptoms vanished. They just disappeared. And yeah, as we went forward, I did have to be told to stop. Someone else had to say to me, "No more. It's not good for you, and there is a danger now." So, yeah, is Doctor Theatre? I think is a real thing, and I think that we can push ourselves for it if we want to, but it's not something we should prescribe or encourage at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things with regards to keeping the energy up, I always try to remind the cast that even if they're getting tired of doing the show and it feels repetitive and a bit stale to them, for the audience, it's the first time they've ever seen it. Even if to the actors it feels stale, they're like, oh, we've done this 15 times the exact same way. I'm bored of this. The audience has never seen it, and it's going to be interesting and exciting to them. So I try to remind the company of that. And yeah, it's kind of a case of just reminding yourself that the audience have paid good money to come and see you. They've taken time out of their day. At the Fringe, there are so many other shows they could have been seeing, and they've chosen to see you. You just need to remind yourself that for them, it should be good. You know, they've paid their money, they've taken time out of their day. You need to deliver for them, and also this doesn't apply to everyone, but for my shows, I do tend to deliberately leave room in the scripts and in the direction for some ad-libbing, some improv, that kind of thing, so the actors night by night can change things up and keep things fresh for themselves, keep things interesting. Sometimes that can make the show worse. So it is a case of constantly evaluating, oh, was what I did tonight better than what I did last night? No, I won't do it again, that kind of thing. But it does keep it fresh and give you an opportunity to play with the show so that you don't get bored of it.
How do you keep a rein on that? How do you keep control of that if you're giving the actors room to play? Again, I'm an actor myself. I know that actors have egos. Sometimes we like sometimes we like to push things a little bit too far, and we like to see what we can do as a performer. But how do you keep it true to the piece?
So in rehearsals, I try to be quite clear and specific about, you know, what the piece is about and the thought process behind it, and why certain jokes work in certain ways, and what is funny and what is good within the script, in such a way that the actors, by the time we finish rehearsals, we're in Edinburgh. The actors hopefully also have an understanding of, in broad terms, what needs to happen in the piece in terms of, you know, energy, tone, pace, that kind of thing. So they'll be aware that certain things will go against that and certain things will lean into that. And then you just hope that when they choose to try things out and change things up, they go for stuff that will lean into and augment what is already there in the script. And yeah, throughout the run, I'll be in the audience most nights, especially at the start of the run. And I'll give notes after the performance or before the performance the next day. And we all, you know each other, trust each other. I can quite candidly say, oh, that bit you didn't work. Please don't do it again. And I'll always try and give a reason as well, of course. And if something does work, on the other hand, I'll be like, yeah, that was great. Let's keep that in. Maybe we can even do more with that. So yeah, it's about trust and constant reevaluation, assessment, that kind of thing.
So if we go back to the beginning of you pulling your team together, is there a place that you can remember that you start to work on building that trust? Because it doesn't just happen. You can't force it. So where does it begin?
Where does it begin?
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah. So 2 members of the cast I've worked with for quite a few years on a few different projects. So we just know each other well, and that trust has organically built up. And then with the new member of the cast, the 3rd cast member, it's been, at first I was kind of nervous about bringing a new person into this pre-existing team dynamic, but it's just been a case of very consciously and proactively being as welcoming as possible and really taking the time to consciously listen to her ideas, listen to her thoughts, listen to her suggestions, which is great because she is amazingly insightful. She brings the most wonderful things to rehearsals. But yeah, just very consciously making her feel like, my thoughts are being listened to and respected. And even if Charles disagrees with me, he's going to let me know in a respectful way. And he'll give reasons why, and he'll offer alternatives to my suggestions. I will never, like, if an actor tries something out and it doesn't work, I'll never just be like, no, that was bad. Don't do that. I'll always elaborate and say that was bad because, and then I'll give the reasons. And that's very important. People need to know and understand that what they're offering and what they're suggesting is being taken seriously and is being thought about. And once it's been thought about, then a decision can be made as to whether it stays in the show or not. And the same happens in reverse. I am constantly editing my scripts throughout the rehearsal process, as the actors are like, oh, this line here, I don't think that's as good as it could be. I think the joke is not coming through quite as clearly as it could. I think that's now contradicts the direction we're taking the character in now. They'll offer all of this feedback to my scripts, and I'll go away and rewrite that. So it's a very, very two-way process, which is important as well. It makes sure everyone feels like their voice is being heard and they're being taken seriously.
Yeah, I think that's very important that you touched on there at the end there, that it goes both ways. It has to go both ways for it to work.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your hopes and dreams for this festival. What do you hope to achieve by attending this year?
I would like to make some of my money back.
Which is fair,
yeah.
which is absolutely fair. Like, you don't hear many people going into this saying, I'm going to go into this to make money. That's not realistic to say that, is it? But to say that you'd like to break even and not be poorer than you were when you went in, I think is reasonable.
Yeah. We managed it last year, and ticket pre-sales are going very well so far this year. I think it's helped by, I don't know if this is true, but I assume a lot of people saw our show last year and liked it. And when they see it in the Fringe program or on the website, they're like, oh, that's the same picture, that's the same company, that's a very similar title. I'll book a ticket for that. So hopefully we're on track to break even. We'll see, touch wood. And then other hopes and dreams, I'd like to get some more good reviews. Last year we had, I think, only 2 or 3 reviewers in, and all 3 of those reviews were good, 4 or 5 stars. I think it was 1 5-star review, and the others were 4-star. I'd like more of that. this year I've been, again, more organized about contacting the press, inviting reviewers along, and so on. So I'm hoping to get some more reviewers physically in to see the show, and get some nice reviews out of them. It would be helpful for me as an artist to be able to have those reviews to, you know, direct people towards, to show that my work is good. It always helps with, you know, getting future projects off their feet. On their feet.
On their feet, off their feet, and onto their feet.
And then again, meet some nice people, meet some interesting people, form some connections. And as I touched on before, whether that goes anywhere in terms of my career or not, I'm not really that interested in. It would be nice, but I'd rather just organically form these connections and see what happens.
Do you look to the future at all? Do you look to what could happen past a festival, or do you try and keep it as much in the present moment as possible?
At the moment, I cannot think past the festival. That's all encompassing. It's all that's on my mind. I am just getting ready for Edinburgh to begin, and that's everything. I have other projects that I would like to work on. I've got lots of scripts I want to write, and once Edinburgh is out of the way, hopefully I will have more time to do that, because this has been taking up all of my time. But I haven't thought about it that specifically. And with regards to this project, and whether this will do anything after the festival, I have no specific ambitions with regards to that, but it would be nice. Like, I could see this show, and the previous one as well, the 5 short plays. I could see them doing well in like little theaters, pub theaters in London, maybe. It would be nice to tour, but I haven't thought about that specifically, so that's not something I think is going to happen.
What is it that would drive a show forward? What is it that would make the show go from just being at the Edinburgh Fringe to a tour? Is it the reviews? Is it the sold out audiences? Or is it something else?
It's both of those things, yeah. And in my understanding as well, a lot of it is about connections with people from theatres around the country who are programming work. So meeting these artistic directors, these theatre programmers, and getting them on board with the show. And I think it's quite difficult to get that process going at this stage. So as I say, it's not something I'm thinking about that much. But if I had started doing it a few months ago, I'd been like, okay, after the Fringe, I think this show should go on tour. Then I could have, you know, laid the groundwork of reaching out to these people, coming up with, you know, the materials needed to convince them that it's a good idea for them to program the show in their theatre, coming up with more publicity, images, that kind of thing, which is all stuff I've been doing, just not to the extent that if I was serious about doing a tour, I would have done.
Mm-hmm. So as we sort of wrap this up now, what advice would you have to anyone that is attending the Edinburgh Fringe Festival for the first time this year?
I think the most important thing is to look after yourself mentally and physically. It's so easy to get like absolutely absorbed in it, in the show and in the festival itself, and you'll get exhausted, you'll burn out. Like if you're flyering for your show 4 hours a day, and then doing the show, and then seeing other people's shows, and then making sure to go and talk to them afterwards and network with them, you'll burn out and get exhausted within days. So take it easy, relax, take some time away from the Fringe. You don't need to go and see a show every single day. Sometimes it's fine to just do your own show and then go back to wherever you're staying and read a book, watch a movie, or go and meet some people in the pub, and don't talk about theatre, don't talk about your show, don't go and see a show with them, just stay in the pub, talk to them, take little breaks like that, climb Arthur's Seat, go for a walk, go for a jog, eat well, remember to eat vegetables and fruit, probably worth taking vitamin supplements as well, just in case, because generally at the Fringe you're not going to have the time or the energy to prepare and eat nutritious meals, and it's a very stressful time in a lot of ways, especially with the financial risk because it's so expensive. But if you are constantly stressed, that's only going to make things worse. You're going to be doing worse work. You're going to be less efficient at any admin stuff you need to get done. So even if you're like, oh, I've got so much I need to get done, sometimes it's better to take a break, to not do anything for a while and come back to it with a fresh mind, fresh set of eyes, and so on.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a really wonderful conversation, Charles. I really appreciate your input, your advice, your wisdom. If anyone is interested in coming to see your show, and they've been watching or listening today, where can they find out more about you and about the show?
So you can follow my theatre company on Instagram or Twitter. The handle for both of them is lowbar_theatre. If they're interested in me personally, then on Instagram, Charles Edward Pipe _writer. On Twitter, just Charles_Pipe. There's information about the show on all of these places. We'll be posting about it nonstop. You can also just go on the Ed Fringe website, search for 4 more short plays. It should come up.
And where's the show being performed?
It's at the Space on the Mile, and it runs from the 2nd to the 24th of August, and it's on at 3 different times across the 3 weeks of the Fringe. So in the first week it's 3:15, in the second week it's 12:35, and in the third week it's 4:35. So if you're there, for example, for a full run doing your show, even if one of these times clashes with your show, go see it in a different week. There's a time for everyone.
Last question for you then. As an audience member, when is the best time to visit the Fringe? At the beginning, in the middle, or at the end?
So at the beginning, there's a lot of discounts and deals and whatnot. A lot of shows will be having preview shows with reduced tickets, and then the first Monday and Tuesday of the Fringe, there'll be a lot of shows doing a 2-for-1 offer. So I would say it is worth going early and seeing as many shows as you can during the time when it's cheap. During the middle of the Fringe, I think is where the vibe, the energy is probably going to be the best. That's when most people are going to be there, having fun, and so on. At the end of the Fringe, things do start to wind down a little. There's fewer people there. A lot of shows are gone. Some venues start packing up. So it can be a bit more quiet, which some people like. Some people are like, oh, it's a bit more peaceful. It's a bit more relaxed. I personally don't like that as much. I like the fun energy, the hustle and bustle of the Fringe. So by the end, when everything's starting to wind down, I'm like, oh, this is sad. But some people like it. They're like, oh, it's a chance for me to peacefully go and see the shows that I've been meaning to see that are still on at that stage.
Well, this has been great, Charles. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you for sharing. No problem at all. And if anyone has been watching or listening and joining us for this conversation, we appreciate you for joining us. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Martin. Take care.
No problem. And you. Bye-bye.